All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our bill signing today. We are here to sign the bills for very important water infrastructure projects that we've been discussing throughout this legislative session. After our people, water is the most important natural resource that we have in our state. We use it obviously for drinking water, use it for irrigation. In fact, we are the largest irrigated state in the country, 9 million acres. 3 of every 8 farmland acres is irrigated here in Nebraska. It's what allows us to feed our nation and the world. We use it for power generation, and we use it to take care of the natural environment. And all those have great benefits for us. We talked a little bit about the water we use for irrigation and how important that is for us. In fact, we do a great job here in our state of managing all this water. If you think about it, far-sighted visionaries 50 years ago created our system of natural resource districts, which help us manage our water based upon river basin. And with that system and all the other work that has gone on, we have managed to keep our Ogallala aquifer within 1 foot of where it was in the 1950s. And just contrast that with Colorado. Their Ogallala aquifer is down nearly 15 feet, and Kansas is down over 26 feet. So we do a great job here in Nebraska. And we're wonderfully blessed with water resources. We've got the most underground water of any state in the country. We've got more miles of streams and rivers than any state in the country, 80,000 miles of streams and rivers. And our farmers and ranchers were the original conservationists. They wanted to protect the land and the water, to be able to pass it on to the next generation. And so we see here in our state that we are wonderfully blessed with water resources. But as we saw in 2019, we know that we have to make investments. We saw the necessity and the benefit of investing in those flood control measures when we hit the floods in 2019. And this year, the city of Lincoln, for example, has urged water users to conserve water as we're facing a drought as we go into the summer season here. So we know that droughts can impact us as well. And that's why we need to continue to manage, protect, preserve, and steward our water resources here in the state of Nebraska. And as I mentioned, we do a great job with this. I mentioned our farmers and ranchers. The Doherty Water for Food Institute estimates that between 1990 and 2014, that our farmers and ranchers have improved the crop water productivity for corn and soybeans by 75%, which means they're growing more corn and soybeans with less water. And of course, we're the home of the center pivot irrigation industry. 80% of all the center pivots in the world are made here in Nebraska. And that's one of the ways that we are able to manage our water resources and produce more food with less water. So we can see the importance of water to our state. We know that not only does it help us out in our largest industry, agriculture, and then of course it's important for drinking water across our state for our communities. We mentioned power generation. You know, for example, Gerald Gentleman uses water from the Platte River to cool its power generation facilities. And then of course, I mentioned the natural environment. We have water that we use to help protect natural species, and this in turn helps us with a variety of other things as well, whether it's those float trips down the Niobrara River or attracting folks and tourism to watch the sandhills crane migration. All that also benefits our state, as well as protecting the natural environment. And what we have today is 2 bills that will help us to continue to build on this heritage of conserving and protecting and managing and storing our water here in the state. We're going to start with LB 1023E, otherwise known as the Star Wars Project. And Star Wars, well actually I'm going to steal your thunder if I say this. So Star Wars stands for, let's see if I can get it right, Statewide Tourism and Recreational Waters Accessibility Resource Sustainability.
That's it.
There you go. Look at that. And obviously the speaker's a Star Wars fan. So again, a project that will involve a number of different things to be able to help us build upon our water resources here in the state, including building a marina at Lake McConaughey, expanding the marina at Lewis and Clark Lake, a convention center and lodge in Niobrara State Park, and then of course the lake between Lincoln, and Omaha to be able to help build that 3,600-acre reservoir so that we can have that water not only for recreational purposes, but also to help us store water and conserve water and all the benefits that come along with that. So that bill was introduced by Speaker Hilgers and prioritized by Senator McDonald, and is, again, a great investment here in our state. And so before we get any further more into that bill, I'm actually going to turn it over to Speaker Hilgers, because this was him and his special committee that put together the Star Wars project. So I'm going to ask the Speaker to say a few more words about it.
Thanks, Governor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Governor, for having us here. You didn't steal all my thunder, because LB 1023 is also known as the JEDI Act, which is the Jobs and Economic Development Initiatives Act. So you kind of set me up nicely there, Governor. I appreciate, Governor, the opportunity to be here in your briefing room today to talk about this. It just seems like a few short months ago we were here when we were announcing the projects in the first place, and all the excitement and still some of the unknown of whether or not we'll be able to get this across the finish line. And I really appreciate, Governor Ricketts, your teamwork on this from the early discussions on LB 406 a year and a half ago, all the way through the appropriations process and here today for this bill signing. I think when you think about big projects like this, and I think when we think about the success of the 107th legislature, these water bills, in my opinion, are going to be at the top of the list of the transformative bills that we would have gotten across the finish line. But when you think about transformative projects, I think in the unicameral it takes a few different things. It takes a big vision, I think it takes teamwork, and it takes people willing to dive into the grit of the legislative process. And we had all of that here. I want to start with my colleagues on the Star Wars Committee, several of whom are behind me, Senator Bosselman, Senator Clements, and Senator McDonald. I think I've got them all. Who were absolutely transformative leaders in this process. And the Star Wars Committee had about a fifth of the legislature. We had Republicans, we had Democrats, we had people from Lincoln, from Omaha, from outstate. We had a lot of different voices. We had a diversity of ideological perspectives when it came to how do we best build off our water resources. That committee worked together over the course of a year. We jammed over a year's worth of work into about 6 months. We worked collaboratively, we worked diligently, we worked together. We didn't always agree on every particular issue, but our collaborative process got us to a place where we could unanimously propose LB 1023 and the ultimate projects that came along with it in the appropriations package. And at the end of the day, we by going through the grit, the process, working together, we were able to sit here now, hopefully with the governor. I did confirm with the governor he has his signing pen and not his veto pen for LB 1023. So we should be good here in a second. I don't want to jinx it. But what we're going to do today, I think, is an incredible testament to the work of all of those different senators. And it's a team sport. It's a team game. And when we succeed, we do it together. And I couldn't have done it without all of those members with us. You know, when we sign bills or we see bills get passed, oftentimes we sit and forget, even the ones that have transformative impact on our state. The exciting part of these projects, I think, is that I think there will be countless generations of Nebraskans, hopefully in a short time, and in the case of some of these projects, maybe a little bit longer for some of the other projects, who will be able to enjoy the work that we put into this to be able to get this done. And I think it'll add immeasurably to the quality of life for Nebraskans, and not to mention include improving our economic opportunities here in the state and growing jobs and building off of what I do think is one of our top 2 assets here in the state, which is our water resources. So with that, Governor, I don't know if I hand it back to you or is there someone else?
Hand it back to me, but don't go far. All right, make sure we got the right bill here. Stand close, because we are actually, this is an actual signing of the bill. This is not just a ceremonial. So, Speaker, you might as well be close here. All right, with my signature, 1023E now becomes law. Right. Congratulations. Great. Thank you very much, Speaker. All right, let's not lose that one. All right. And next, I want to talk a little bit about LB 1015. So this was a bill that was again introduced by Speaker Hilgers and prioritized by Senator Hughes. And it is an important bill for us to protect our water rights here in Nebraska. One of the things we have seen on the South Platte River is that the state of Colorado is looking to invest nearly $10 billion in about 282 different projects many of which they've already completed, many of which are under construction already, that we estimate that if all were to be completed, would take about 90% of the water in the South Platte River, depriving us of that water. And in fact, that has been their stated goal, where they said they do not want to leave any water above the legal minimum to Nebraska. Now, the good news is we have a compact dating back to 1923, which was approved of by both legislatures, Colorado and Nebraska, and by the U.S. Congress, that says that if we build a canal to the South Platte River, that during the non-irrigation season, Colorado will be required to deliver 500 cubic feet a second to us in the non-irrigation season, on top of the 120 cubic feet a second they're required to deliver to us in the irrigation season. And so that is what LB 1015 is about. It's about beginning the project of constructing this canal to a reservoir system in Nebraska, and therefore having that legal claim on that water during the non-irrigation season. This is not about getting more water for the state of Nebraska. This is merely about making sure we can actually have legal title or legal claim to the water that we are already getting. And as I mentioned, the water that comes to us from the South Platte River helps with so many things. Drinking water up and down the Platte River, all those communities, power generation, irrigation, and of course the natural environment. Before I sign the bill, I'd also like to ask our Attorney General to come and say a few words. His office, along with the Department of Natural Resources and our NRDs and our public power districts, have all been watching the developments in Colorado and concerned about what that will mean for us with regard to the water that is coming to us in the South Platte River. And so him and his team have done a great job of helping us through this process. So Attorney General Peterson, will you please say a few words?
Thank you, Governor. I think the Governor covered the area well as far as the history, and our responsibility as the Nebraska Department of Justice is to make sure that we take the steps necessary. That's why this bill is important in order for us to protect and enforce the terms of the compact. I think water is is a topic that you can easily take for granted until there's a shortage. And it's quite obvious that the state of Colorado is dealing with a serious shortage. They've expressed what their intent is. So it's necessary at this point for us to complete the terms of that 100-year-old compact to make sure that we also are protecting the interest of Nebraskans and the importance of the flows from the South Platte. So we are very encouraged that this step is being taken. We can start moving forward on both the studies and also assessing the lands that will need to be acquired for the canal. We have worked well in the past with Colorado, but obviously Colorado now has indicated that they're going to be very aggressive about South Platte. So it's necessary for us to have the language that was in that compact 100 years ago completed with regards to this canal. And so we thank the legislature and thank the governor for getting this portion passed.
All right, thank you very much, Attorney General. And now, okay, now we are official on this one. Thank you, Attorney General, for all your help on this. Appreciate it. Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now, as with all pieces of legislation, it is always a team effort. There's nothing that gets passed in the legislature that is ever easy. It always takes work on the part of a number of different people to be able to make these things come to fruition. And so I'd like to recognize a number of the folks who are part of the team in helping us with these different bills by providing the ceremonial copies of the legislation to these folks. So there's a number of people that are that were just critical to getting this done. I'm going to actually start with the members with LB 1023 and start with the members of the Star Wars Committee. And of course, the person who helped shepherd that all through, Speaker Hilgers. Speaker, would you come forward, please? Thank you very much. Congratulations. All right. I don't believe Senator Brandt could be with us here today, but I'm going to sign one for him as well. I'll put that there. Senator Flood was also part of the committee. Senator Gragert. Senator Hughes. Senator McAllister. Oh, good. We got one of the people here. Senator McDonald. Please come forward and receive your signed copy. Thank you so much for all your work on this. Appreciate it. Great. We'll also get Senator Wishart. And Senator Bosselman, please come forward. I believe your father, Dwayne, is also in the audience here today. Welcome, glad you're both here. And then Senator Clements, please come forward. Thank you for all the great work. Thank you. Good job. And then one other person who was absolutely critical in making all this happen because of all the work that is put in behind the scenes, Denny Vigalis. Denny, are you here somewhere? Did he not come did somebody not tell him to be here? He said he was going to be here. Apparently lunch took priority. All right. Well, we'll still sign one for him anyway. All right, so that's the 1023 crowd. Now, as I mentioned, we have a number of folks. Let's see, that's 1023. All right, when it came to the Perkins County Canal, there's a number of people that are, again, critical for making that all happen. So we have, again, we're going to call Speaker Hilders up. This is 1023. There we go. How come you're the one's thicker than mine?
We had a big committee.
You had a big committee. Okay, there you go. Speaker, your second major piece of water infrastructure legislation. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Attorney General Peterson. Thank you so much for all your help. All right. I will also want to sign one for Senator Hughes, who prioritized this bill. As I mentioned, he couldn't be here with us today, but we appreciate all his work on helping to prioritize and get that moved forward. And then another person who was very critical in making this all happen is Tom Riley, who's our Director of the Department of Natural Resources. He will also not only was critical in making this happen, he will also be the person who's going to be responsible for putting together the plans to make it happen going forward. Congratulations, Tom. Thank you. And then we also had a number of folks who helped us behind the scenes or by talking about the project, again, helping to educate people about the importance of making sure that we protected our water rights here in the state of Nebraska. So I'd like to call those folks up, starting with Kent Miller, who is the General Manager of Twin Plant NRD and a member of the Nebraska Association of Resource Districts. Thank you so much, Kent, for your help. Appreciate it. Kent and I were talking before. You had been discussing this in the 1980s,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So, yes.
Finally, he did it.
So that's a good one to get done. All right. And then also Devin Brundage, who is the General Manager of the Central Platte Power and Irrigation District. As I mentioned, our public power districts were key in helping make the case for how important this was for continued power generation. So thank you very much. All right, thank you, Devin. And then another person from our Public Power Districts, this time Joe Sitta, who is the NPPD Director of Corporate, Environmental, and Water Resources. And Joe, you and I have worked on a number of different things in the past, and thank you so much for your help on this one.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you, thanks. And now I'd also like to call up Dennis Schills, who's president of the Western Irrigation District. Dennis was also very helpful as we were doing some of our town halls talking about this to be able to help. Oh, he wasn't able to make it today, that's right. Well, tell him I gave him a shout out because I appreciate all his help. And then Don Beatty. Don, you were very helpful in making the case for all this, so thank you so much for your help on this. Great working with you. And then I'd also like to call up another person who worked diligently behind the scenes to be able to help make this happen. Oftentimes it happens in my policy research office that folks pass the bills, move on and get ready for the next one, and don't get a time to be acknowledged. But I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Cheryl Wolf in my policy research office for all of her great work. No, Cheryl, you're supposed to come up. So you don't get this wave. You got to come up and get a signed copy of the legislation. Thank you so much for all your work. All right, very good. I think, I didn't miss anybody, right? We got everybody? All right, good. All right, folks, well, thank you all so much for your help with regard to this. Again, it's always a team effort to get any of these bills done. It's always a lot of work, and everybody that is up here today and all the senators I mentioned previously as well all had a hand in making this happen. So we just want to say thank you so much. Again, water is our most important natural resource after our people. We need to continue to manage, protect, steward it here in our state, and that is what we have done as Nebraskans for generations, and this generation of Nebraskans is continuing to do the same. So I'm just so proud of all the efforts here. So with that, we'll go ahead and open it up to questions and answers for LB 1023E and LB 1015. We'll just take questions on those topics unless we run out, and then we'll move on to other topics. But I'll go ahead and open it up to questions on the water. Paul, see your hand was.
Get some kind of timeline on how these studies of these two projects will.
Sure. So Speaker, I'm going to have you start by Paul's asking about the timeline for these projects. Can you want to start off by talking about 1023?
Well, so on 1023, there's a number of different Star Wars projects, and sometimes people get everything kind of conflated and mixed together. So there are the McConaughey projects, the Knox County, Niobrara, Lewis and Clark. Those projects are going to be mostly within the hands, think Game and Parks. They're going to be executing those, and those are going to be on a different timeline than the lake. On the lake, Paul, to the extent that you're asking about that, which is really the primary purpose of 1023, we should. I'd hesitate to put too much of a time frame on it because these things can take a little bit of time, but we were projecting 2 to 3 years to get all the studies done, understand if we should know by then, Paul, to know if this is feasible and all the major boxes that still need to be checked, the hydrology study, the opportunity to get private investment in land acquisition, among others, environmental study, whether those all come up the right way. Well, it's always been our entire purpose and what we've always said on.
Repeat the question.
Oh, the question is, can we assure people not to use eminent domain? I would say the same thing, Paul, that we said on the floor, which is this is meant to be a win-win-win for the state of Nebraska and the people, and that includes the people whose land might be part of this lake, which is we're looking for arm's length transactions. The stories that we heard both during the testimony and otherwise about people who lost their land through an eminent domain process were difficult to hear, and that is absolutely not the approach that we're taking and which way we're headed.
So you're saying it'll never be used?
I don't think we'd say anything a project like this that absolutes either way.
You can never say never.
I don't say never. I'd never say never in almost any of these circumstances.
All right, so with regard to 1015 and the Perkins County Canal Project, as it has been called in the past, we expect that would probably take 8 to 10 years to get done. And Tom Riley, I'm going to have you come up and just talk a little bit about what your plans are as we get started here.
Thank you, Governor. So first out of the gate for our department will be to complete a study that the legislature has asked us to put together by the end of this year that would look at some of the components of the feasibility and different pieces of the project as it goes forward. We've got a team set to do that internally that will be heading off that. We'll also be looking to meet with our Colorado counterparts. I've begun some of those discussions, but we'll get into more details with them about the process and how to go forward. And as the governor noted, the whole project we estimate to be an 8 to 10 year cycle, but this first component of the design and land and so forth would be a 2 to 3 year window as I'd see it.
Are you anticipating litigation over this at some point?
So the question, do we anticipate litigation? And any project like this, we hope not, and we'll cross that bridge when we need to. The compact is pretty straightforward in its authorities and ability to exercise it in terms of that component. So with that said, hopefully not.
Did you want to say anything, Attorney General, on litigation?
No, I mean, you can't predict litigation. I think it's pretty straightforward compact.
But water was for fighting.
Yeah, that's the phrase. So if that were the analogy, then we probably can anticipate it.
Okay.
So the question is, what does instituting this project give Nebraska? And what it gives Nebraska is certainty over having water flows that we depend on and have built infrastructure on right now to be there in the future. Certainly Colorado has in their summertime the ability to take anything down to 120 CFS. We can ask them to curtail their use when it gets to that level. In the wintertime, we don't have that authority without the canal to stop the use of water. And as you've heard the governor and others say, Colorado's a growing area. The Front Range is many people coming every year, and their demand for water is insatiable, and we want to make sure that we can protect the existing water resources that we already have invested in.
But does signing this legislation or enacting this legislation give you an attitude in the bargaining chip?
Well, it gives us the authority to go ahead with the compact, which defines our ability to take water during the wintertime season, during the October to the beginning of April season, around 500 CFS, and to be able to store that for use in the following season. Right now, we don't have that ability.
Governor, the legislature appropriated $53.5 million for this, of which 21 reflected the cost-benefit study, and the rest, I think, was for purchasing land options. Does it make sense to you to purchase land options before the feasibility study is completed, or would you advise the department to hold off on the options?
So with regard to the $53 million that we've been authorized to spend, it'll be a parallel process, Fred, with regard to how we do that. So we're going to be going forward with all the design work and so forth, as well as looking to start working on the options where that becomes, clear where we want to, what kind of land options we want to get. The point of having the ability to get the options is you don't know what path directly you're going to take. So you want to be able to, as you're starting to design, you'll refine that obviously, but you want to start getting, that down as you know the broad path that you want to go down so that you can lock in those prices. So it's really going to be a parallel process. It's not going to be one that happens one after the other. We want to just work together to push forward all of it as quickly as possible, understanding that this is going to be a long-term project.
And also, because the compact explicitly calls for, or allows for a Perkins County canal, does it hurt the state's legal case if the canal doesn't go through Perkins County?
So Fred's question is, since the compact itself refers to a Perkins County canal, does it hurt our legal case if the canal doesn't go through Perkins County? And I'll refer to the Attorney General on that one.
I would consider that a weak argument. I mean, the whole purpose is developing the canal and the reservoir system. I'm not going to speculate whether or not we're tied by the compact to Perkins County, but I think the spirit of the language of that compact was to give us the ability to develop the reservoir system. And so whether they call it Perkins County Canal or whatever name goes to it, I don't think would be a very strong argument.
Other questions? Over here.
When do you expect to have a site for the lake identified?
Speaker, you want to talk about when we expect to have a site for the lake identified?
It's a good question, Aaron. Hopefully sooner than 3 years. I think you have to be able to identify the potential location to be able to run the appropriate studies, hydrology, environmental, and the like. I mean, the good news is, as part of the Star Wars process, we actually identified a few potential locations. I shouldn't say a couple potential locations. So I think we're circling around it, but you could have the world's greatest location in 6 months, but if the other pieces don't check, then you won't be able to have the project go forward.
Yeah, Andrew.
You mentioned this just briefly before, but how concerned are you about that we might be heading into drought this year, along the Platte River that could affect Lincoln or Omaha water supplies? And maybe Tom Riley or Senator Lawson would also answer.
Sure. So with Andrew's question is about, are we concerned about the possibility of drought this year and how it's going to impact drinking water supplies in Lincoln and Omaha? And absolutely, that's one of the things that we're always monitoring. Obviously, the city of Lincoln took the steps to ask people to start conserving water. We would, obviously, we're going to be praying for rain here to be able to help us out. But again, it just emphasizes the importance of these projects, especially this Perkins County Canal project, that we go forward with this to assure that we'll continue to have the water resources for the future. If we allow Colorado to take our water, that's that much less water we'll have, for example, for drinking Lincoln drinking water. Tom, is there anything else you want to add to that?
So some of you may have seen that there were some press announcements just in the last week from the Lower Platte Drought Consortium, which is a group of NRDs, City of Lincoln, Department of Natural Resources, MUD, which has been looking at studying how to handle water supply and demand within the drought system. So the good thing is that the state is actively planning on drought mitigation activities here in the Lower Platte and a couple other areas across the state. It's something that you have to be vigilant about. When it's flooding, people care about floods. When it's dry, people care about the drought. And the reality is you need to be planning for both of them all the time. And so we've got some good things in play, and hopefully we'll be able to help curtail the necessity to have restrictions and those things moving forward. But the governor said the key point is that let's all pray for rain, because if you looked at the drought map in the last few weeks, it's gotten pretty ugly for our state, which for the most part got off a little bit easier than our western friends who have been in a big, bright red circle for a number of years now.
Yeah.
So back to the Ricketts County Canal. Are you at all concerned with the governor of Colorado saying he's going to try to fight this, so that they can keep their water for their projects? Or are you going to hope to probably or possibly reach out to him and work with him on this project to get Nebraska the water it needs for this compact?
So the question was, am I concerned about the governor of Colorado saying he's going to fight this? And at the end of the day, I think it gets back to, we can only enforce our rights if we have this canal. So we will build this canal. And that is what we have to do to protect our water rights. And whatever objections that Colorado may throw up, the compact is pretty clear that we have the right to do this, and that's the only way that we can have our water rights going forward. So we're going to be pursuing, the canal and pursuing protecting our rights.
So with or without, help from that governor, you're gonna make sure this gets done?
Well, again, according to the compact, Colorado is obligated to help us build this canal. They're the ones that are going to provide us the opportunity to build it, and they're also going to provide the water once we get it built. All right, any other questions on the water projects, 1023, 1015? Yes, Barb.
I'd have the Attorney General just briefly explain why we stand in good stead on 1015 because of the downstream, being a downstream state.
So, Attorney General, you want to talk a little bit about why 1015 is so important for us as being a downstream state?
Well, it all goes back to the compact, 100 years old. That gives us a senior status. So any of the activity that goes upstream, it has junior status, and that's why that's important.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, I will go ahead and thank our guests. Thank you all very much for all your help in making sure that we got these really important water projects done for our state. It will help us continue to invest for the future to make sure that we have our water resources and continue to enjoy the good life here in our state. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Governor.
All right, I'm going to open up to other questions. You can stay up here and help me answer other questions. Oh, I knew they'd all run. Thanks, Joe.
Sometimes I wasn't trying to patient you.
All right, so now we will go ahead and move on to other questions. We'll give a second for some of our folks. Yes, Aaron.
I was just wondering if you had any response to the U.S. Treasury letter on Friday requesting funds for a emergency response.
So the question was, do I have any response to the U.S. Treasury letter with regard to the ERAP program? We just received the letter on Friday, so we'll be reviewing it and giving a response back to the Department of Treasury. I would, though, also highlight that for months now, nobody's been able to show me that somehow today in 2022 that things are so much different from where they were pre-pandemic in 2019. There's been no data to say it's anything different. And in fact, we've got even a lower unemployment rate today than we did back then. So, well, we'll be responding back to Treasury. We will be working on a response and responding back to Treasury. I don't have a time frame to give you.
Can you respond to Charles Herbster's comments that these allegations brought by these women were part of a conspiracy by the establishment, the Republican establishment, which I assume is pointing the finger at you?
So the question was, Charles Herbster is saying that the Republican establishment somehow created a conspiracy that these 8 women are somehow behind to accuse him of sexual assault and groping them and so forth. And I would say just read the article, because that article is probably one of the most well-researched, corroborated articles I've ever seen on this topic. And you've got 8 women who are part of this article, and one of whom are a state senator who's come forward, and I believe Senator Salama. I believe her. So I would say just read the article on this.
Do you think he still should step out of the race?
So with regard to what Charles Herbster should do, I think he needs to apologize to the women, and then I think he should seek help, and I think he should step out of the race.
Any more questions?
Yeah, Paul?
I think I know the answer. You were not involved in this bid by your brother and some others to get this soccer team to buy the soccer team in England.
So the question was I involved with the bid for Chelsea and with regard to that? My brother was the one spearheading that. Obviously, I was aware of the effort, but I'm not part of the team that was, going through the bid process or making any of the, doing any of the due diligence or anything like that, so I wasn't involved.
Chelsea Cornhuskers sounds like.
I think the Chelsea fans are very fixed on their team right now. I don't think they need a new mascot.
Governor, why did you come out so strongly when Charles Herbster was accused of groping, and then on President Trump, when he was accused of something very similar, you didn't have a strong language with President Trump?
So Andrew's question is why the difference between Charles Herbster and when President Trump was accused of making some lewd remarks, or actually was taped making lewd remarks. I think it's very different when you're looking at accusations of sexual assault, which is what Charles Herbster is involved, versus the lewd comments the president was making. You may recall at the time, I condemned those remarks and said that I would not be contributing to his campaign. So I think they're 2 very different things. I think when you're talking about allegations of sexual assault, that's a very different thing.
Is it because you know some of the people
So I think it gets back to just the nature of the allegations. The allegations against Charles Herbster are of sexual assault, right? Go look at our statutes. That's what that involves. So it's very different from being recorded making lewd comments.
Can you comment on the harsh reaction that Senator Salama's received on social media because she's?
So the question is, what about the harsh comments Senator Salama has received on social media? Again, I believe Senator Salama. I believe what she is saying. And it is the kind of victim blaming that we're seeing that is why it is so hard for women to come forward and talk about these things. I don't know that people have an appreciation, for example, the power differential between somebody like a Charles Herbster and a young woman, and how embarrassing and shocking that is when that happens, and how nobody plans for that, nobody knows exactly how to respond. And so it is something that is traumatizing, and by blaming the victim, you're only making it harder for future women to come forward when these sorts of terrible things happen. Yeah, Andrew.
Snoop Dogg is coming in Wednesday. You know, how do you hope that law enforcement will enforce any marijuana violations?
So Andrew's asking about the Snoop Dogg concert and law enforcement enforcing marijuana laws. And I know that law enforcement does the best job they can in being able to make sure that they're enforcing the laws we have in our state, all of our laws. And I would certainly encourage law enforcement to continue to do the great job they've been doing.
Do you have any concerns about him coming in on 420?
Well, now, Andrew, I will admit that it has been a long time since I have been to a big concert like that. But I do recall from my younger days that smoking marijuana at a concert is not brand new to this year or to Snoop Dogg. That has happened in the past at concerts. Yeah.
You're not speaking from personal experience.
I am not speaking from personal experience on that. I have never smoked marijuana. However, I have been to concerts and smelled it.
All right. I think we're good.
All right. Thank you all very much again for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate it. And you all have a great rest of your week.